for Kevin Hogan.
And I'm Evelyn Lee. Today is Friday, November 8th. Topping this morning's news.
President-elect Trump has announced his first official pick for his incoming cabinet. Susie Wiles, his longtime advisor and a key strategist to his successful 2024 campaign, will serve as the White House Chief of Staff. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from West Palm Beach, Florida.
And President-elect Trump on Thursday night tapping Susie Wiles, the de facto manager of his successful 2024 campaign, as his White House Chief of Staff. Wiles, who will not need Senate confirmation, will be the first woman in U.S. history to hold that title. In a statement, Trump says Wiles helped and achieved one of the greatest political victories in American history, calling her tough, smart, innovative, and is universally admired and respected. Wiles, a respected political operative from Florida, is one of the longest-serving advisors in Trump's orbit. She ran Trump's successful campaigns in Florida in both 2016 and 2020. She's also credited for running Trump's 2024 campaign, one that's described by political strategists as disciplined and well-executed. But Wiles has also been relatively low-key. At the election night watch party in Florida, she even refused to take the mic to speak as Trump celebrated his victory.
Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The ice maiden, we call her the ice maiden. Come on, Chris. Come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background.
Meanwhile, on the second day in a row, Trump is taking calls from world leaders and hashing out his cabinet members and policies from his Mar-a-Lago right here in West Palm Beach. While there's quite a list being floated, some are being talked about the most often. For Secretary of State, names include Senator Marco Rubio, who leads national security efforts and serves on the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, and Richard Grenell, the former acting director of national intelligence under Trump. For Defense Secretary, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo could return to run the Defense Agency. For Attorney General, names being floated include Senator Mike Lee, an attorney previously specialized in Supreme Court litigation, and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who Trump has said was under consideration. Trump's also talked about tapping RFK Jr. to lead health and food policy and Elon Musk to lead efforts to cut government spending. And Trump has repeatedly said before that one of the biggest lessons from his first term was the importance to pick the right people. And this time around, he's expected to pick people who are loyal to him and would ensure a smooth implementation of his vision for the country. Reporting from West Palm Beach, Iris Tao, NTD News.
President Biden makes his first public speech following Trump's victory. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more from the White House.
President Biden addressing the nation from the White House's Rose Garden here, talking about how he called former president and now president-elect Donald Trump to congratulate him on his victory and also to invite him to the White House, although a date has not yet been announced on when that will be. Now, as far as how voters must be feeling right now, President Biden addressed that, saying that he called for unity amid political differences.
You can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree.
Biden also thanked those election workers who worked tirelessly, many of them volunteers, for getting those results processed. He also praised Vice President Kamala Harris in her campaign.
She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran.
Biden dropped out of the race back in July and endorsed Harris. Now, when asked if he regrets that decision and whether the results would have turned out differently, the White House had this to say.
President Biden believes that he made the right decision when he decided to step aside. This was not the outcome that our team had wanted. So are we disappointed? Yes, we are disappointed. But we also respect. We respect the outcome of the election. We respect what the American people voted for, wanted.
President Biden said that there's still a lot to be done within the next and last 70 or so days of his presidency. Now, earlier, he just signed an executive order which extends an emergency declaration for about 1 year that prevents the U.S. from investing in Chinese companies that go directly to help its military, saying that the Chinese Communist Party's military is a national security threat. Reporting from the White House, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
A federal judge has struck down the Biden administration's parole in place policy. The Keeping Families Together program gave legal status to some illegal immigrants who are married to U.S. citizens.
The policy shielded immigrants from deportation and allowed them to work legally as they sought citizenship. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the ruling.
The policy allowed illegal immigrants to work legally in the country as they sought citizenship. Biden issued the executive action in June for the program when he was running for re-election. The initiative then launched in August. It was blocked days later while a court considered a legal challenge brought by Texas and a coalition of states. In Thursday's ruling, U.S. District Judge J. Campbell Barker said Congress had not given the executive branch the authority to implement the policy. The case is one of several ongoing legal challenges to Biden administration policies that the incoming Trump administration may refuse to defend. Americans see illegal immigration as the most pressing issue for Trump to address when he takes office in January. A large majority believe he will order mass deportations, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll that closed on Thursday. Chad Wolf was the acting United States Secretary of Homeland Security under the Trump administration. He says DHS is set up to deport people if given the green light.
So this idea of removing individuals or deporting individuals, it's not a new concept. The department has officers dedicated to this. They has resources dedicated to this, detention beds dedicated to this. And so it's actually letting ICE officers do the job that they were hired and trained to do.
Wolf says if folks break the law, they should face the consequences, but it is necessary to prioritize.
There's over 1.5 million orders of removal in this country. These are individuals that have gone through the court system, and an immigration judge has said that you need to remove yourself from this country, and they've decided for whatever reason to remain here in the United States. They should be a priority for removal, in my opinion.
In more immigration news, New York City is ending a pilot program that gave migrant families prepaid debit cards. Families of 4 were receiving cards worth about $350 a week for food. The one-year program was designed to let families in city-funded hotels buy their own groceries. Mayor Eric Adams' office announced it won't be renewed as the city shifts to competitive contracts for migrant aid. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani says he is a victim of political persecution. This is after a judge threatened to hold him in contempt for failing to surrender his assets. A federal judge set a new deadline for Giuliani to transfer his luxury apartment and other belongings to 2 Georgia election workers he defamed. Giuliani said the defamation judgment is, quote, ridiculous and that he's pretty sure it can be reversed. The 2 election workers say Giuliani is resisting their efforts to collect the assets and ignoring questions about where his property is located. The judge gave Giuliani till next week to hand it over. The assets in question include a $5 million apartment in New York City, a Mercedes-Benz, a Yankees shirt signed by Joe DiMaggio, and other luxury items.
Now that Republicans have won the Senate and are just seats away from taking the House, what would a new Republican Congress look like?
NTD's Melina Wisecup has more on the Republican policy agenda.
Just 25 House races have yet to be called, mostly on the West Coast, and Republicans are getting very close to securing 218. And if they are successful there, they already have an agenda to get started on. Speaker Mike Johnson previously laid out 5 priorities that they'd like to address once they take the gavel. At the top of that list is invigorating the economy, and he noted that confronting China is a key element to doing so.
Bipartisan work will continue as we take on Chinese companies that use forced labor and dodge tariffs through the de minimis exception. Congress also continues to have productive conversations about the best way to prevent American funds from flowing into firms that support the Chinese military. More and more people now understand that we support the Chinese economy at our own peril.
The speaker committed to supporting tax cuts that will likely be pushed by President-elect Trump, as well as revamping U.S. oil and gas production. Another 2 priorities are to open up opportunities for school choice and slash the size of the federal government.
And root out a long list of non-essential jobs throughout the federal bureaucracy. Our government is going to be a responsible government with a reduced scope and reduced spending.
Now, Speaker Mike Johnson does need to go through a re-election bid to remain the House Speaker. That race is shaping up for mid-December. Otherwise, the most challenging part for Republicans now in Congress will be to surpass the 60-vote threshold in the Senate in order to pass key pieces of legislation. With just 53 Republicans now, that means that most of these bills will need to be bipartisan in order to get enough Democrats on board to vote for them. As of right now, while Republicans have secured the Senate, they're just a few seats away from also securing the House. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
For a closer look at the ongoing race for the House, we're joined by Hugh Fike, Director of Government Relations at the Conservative Partnership Institute. Good morning, Hugh. How could the outcome of the House affect Trump's presidency?
Well, one of the major things is going to be getting key revenue pieces out of the House. As the Constitution states, that's where the revenue provisions need to generate. So that's going to be a key piece of that. And another thing that kind of gets kind of sidelined until it's happened are the oversight aspects of it. Having the House or the Senate be in the same party's control as the president is really a key piece of making sure that a correct oversight gets done and not adversarial oversight gets done. There's obviously a lot of that work that needs to go on, and that's going to require kind of a concerted effort. So those are kind of the two big pieces. I mean, obviously, getting things through the House and the Senate is always tough, and then onto the president's desk, especially stuff that the president wants. So that's going to be a key piece of that.
And it seems the GOP is leading right now in the House race with only 25 seats left unsettled. What is the path for Democrats to win the House? I mean, there is still a path.
Yeah, it looks fairly narrow at this point. I mean, obviously, certain races are still getting called. Congressman Perry's race was just called here in Pennsylvania yesterday. And so there are certainly races that are still taking a little bit longer to count. I think Arizona is having a hard time getting all the ballots across the finish line as well. I think that is narrowing. I think there's a huge expectation here in Washington that conservatives will be in the majority in the House and the Senate. So that's looking a little bit less likely. But to your point, there's always a path, but it's looking very, very dim at the moment.
Okay, and the economy was the number one issue this election cycle. You touched on this a little bit. Expand on the economic policies Trump and the Republicans in Congress will pursue in the coming months.
Yeah, well, I think as things kind of shore up a little bit more, we kind of progress further into November. The president is going to lay out his agenda, and certainly, the economy has always been a high part of his priority. I mean, under his administration, the economy was doing great. 401ks were up, housing prices were down, and there were huge advantages to certain economic policies that he had enacted and was pushing. So I think the key part of this is going to be looking towards what his administration wants to do, and in the House and the Senate taking cues and trying to push those things forward. But it's no secret that the current situation is very tough for a lot of families. Inflation has been running rampant, almost pretty much uncontrolled and unchecked, and housing prices are up. Grocery prices are up, gas prices are up. These are all things that the president has been saying on the campaign trail are very important to him. So, a lot of conservatives are saying that this is work that's going to need to be done, and these issues are going to need to be tackled.
And what are some of the other issues or policies we could see the Republicans in Congress pursue in the next few months here as we get started?
Well, again, I think a lot of that's going to have to be, up to the president. There's a lot of things that they've done over the past, 2 years in this Congress that I think are worth reconsidering. Certainly, but winning the popular vote, winning the Electoral College to the degree he has. I mean, clearly, I think a lot of people, including many in Congress, see this as a mandate election. And so, as the kind of end of this, this year rolls out, I think he's going to be a little bit more aggressive in determining what he wants to do in the first 100 days. I mean, this is very crucial. At the end of next year, filing deadlines and primaries start whipping up at the start. So it's a very short amount of time. And so there's something called reconciliation, which is mostly a House or mostly a Senate play because of the way that Senate rules are. But that's going to be a key feature in getting many of these policies across the line in the shortest amount of time.
And given the margin that we're seeing in the Senate and the margin that you're anticipating in the House, what do you think is within and without the realm of possibility for Congress to pursue? I mean, they do need a certain number of votes to pursue certain things.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing to watch. I think with the influence that the president has amongst those in the House and the Senate, it's going to be certainly a key feature of his play, I'm sure. But the kind of narrow majorities in both bodies are going to be something that is going to need to be watched and amended and tailored to. I think that there's a way for everything to work. It's just going to require a lot of coalition building. It's going to require a lot of figuring out how to advance key priorities through certain parts of those bodies. I worked in Congress with a very narrow body, in the House especially, and it's never easy. But I think if you bring different parts of the conference together and you talk about whether or not certain things are capable and trying to figure out. I mean, this is all about building coalitions and ensuring that voices are heard, because if you just try to start ramming these things through without much buy-in, it's going to be even more difficult given the narrow majorities.
Yeah, and to your point, we saw some chaos when the GOP controlled the House in the last 4 years. Republicans ousted Speaker Kevin McCarthy, for example. What do you think the next 4 years will be like in terms of Republican unity in Congress?
Yeah, well, it's you just have to look back to the first couple of years that the President Trump was in office in 17 and 18, and I think that there was at least during my time and from my perspective when I was there, there were some disagreements on the margins, but for the most part, everybody saw the greater good and wanted to help advance the priorities of the president. I mean, that's a huge part of getting things across the finish line in Congress. So yeah, there are narrow majorities, and that always makes it difficult. Obviously, the bigger majority, the more votes that you can lose on certain things. But I think for the most part, people are looking at the current economic situation, the current border crisis, the current the social crises that are happening across the country, and they know the urgency of the moment. I mean, this is a key part of this presidency is going to be fixing and addressing a lot of the major things that have gone off the rails. And so this is going to be, I think, a motivating piece for many in Congress, and it's going to hopefully be a lasting piece and something that helps over the next couple of years.
And certainly the more unity, the more they'll be able to get things done. Hugh Fike, Director of Government Relations at the Conservative Partnership Institute, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Coming up, firefighters struggle to contain a California wildfire.
Thousands have been ordered to evacuate.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作， 可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天一的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以我希望给你的每一把琴都是首先我所信任的。
Welcome back. A brush fire in California has grown to over 20,000 acres, destroying homes and forcing thousands of evacuations.
California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency in Ventura County.
A wildfire northwest of Los Angeles burned out of control for a second day Thursday. It destroyed hundreds of buildings, but officials said firefighters could catch a break, with fierce winds expected to die down by Friday evening. Firefighters said the blaze was only 5% contained as of Thursday evening. Ventura County's fire chief gave a news conference saying the fire was still dangerous. The office ordered more than 14,000 evacuations.
It's been a long 26 hours since this incident started, and it remains dynamic and it remains dangerous. And again, I'm going to reiterate a couple of things that my partners have said up here. To our community members that have been impacted by this fire, our hearts do go out to you. You are our families, you are our communities.
The blaze, dubbed the Mountain Fire, began Wednesday morning in an area dealing with unseasonably high temperatures and strong winds. The fire department said at least 800 firefighters had been assigned, and hundreds more were arriving from around the state. Governor Newsom said California has mobilized state resources, including personnel, fire engines, and aircraft, and that FEMA sent a fire management assistant grant to help fight the fire. While officials estimate more than 100 structures were destroyed, we won't know the full extent of the damage until 10 damage assessment teams complete their work. Ventura County Sheriff Jim Fryhoff said at least 10 people were injured, mostly from inhaling smoke. Wildfires have scorched more than 1 million acres throughout California this year, according to CAL FIRE. That's much more than the 300,000 acres burned by the same time last year.
The Federal Reserve cutting rates again, this time by 1/4 percentage point. This brings the benchmark federal funds rate to between 4.5 and 4.75%.
All 12 Fed voters backed the decision. During the question and answer session, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the cut will help maintain the strength of the economy.
We're on a path to a more neutral stance, and that's very much what we're on. That has not changed at all since September, we're just going to have to see where the data lead us.
A more neutral stance is one where the Fed will implement a level of interest rates that is neither stimulative nor restrictive for the economy. This hypothetically allows the economy to develop at a natural pace without Fed impact. Chairman Jerome Powell reiterated his goal of hitting a 2% inflation rate over the long run and achieving maximum employment.
Staying with a related topic now, with President-elect Trump preparing for his second term, what could that mean for your taxes and your wallet? We bring in Brandon Arnold. He is the Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union. Good morning, Brandon. Let's start with this. What do we actually know about Trump's tax policies? What do you expect to see?
Yeah, I think we can start by looking back in 2017 when he passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in conjunction, of course, with Congress. And what that did was lower tax rates. 80% of Americans got a tax cut. That tax cut averaged out to about $2,000 a family. We also saw lower business taxes, more beneficial policies with regard to investment and R&D and things like that. Now, most of that policy is going to expire at the end of 2025. So the top priority for this administration has to be making sure we're locking in those provisions to make sure that Americans aren't facing a pretty significant tax increase at a time when so many Americans are struggling to pay their bills, to make sure they get their mortgage covered and just keep their head above water each month.
Definitely, it's tough times, and people have been feeling it, as we know. But lots of ideas and lots of talk about it as well. One of them is no tax on tips. I want to know more about it. It was bipartisan, actually, but there were questions if this is actually a good idea and whether it could actually be taken advantage of. And I just recently also read in Forbes that those big tax breaks sometimes makes other tax breaks harder. So with this benefiting tip workers, for example, it might deprive non-tip workers of their tax benefit. Can you help explain this and what your take is on that?
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky policy, and you're right. It was adopted originally by Trump, and then Kamala supported it as well. It's not really the best idea. It's not going to create a lot of economic growth and stimulus. It will give some people some tax relief, of course, if you're getting tipped income. But you also have to tackle the fundamental question of fairness. Why is a waitress or waiter at a restaurant getting a significant tax cut while the person that's maybe washing dishes or cleaning tables or so forth is not? You know, it doesn't seem to be fair. They're both working their tails off, and they should both be entitled to low taxes and a similar tax structure. And then the math problem, and I mean that in a macro sense here, when we're talking about doing tax reform here, we also have to look at the fact that we have an enormous federal debt that we're facing. So every type of policy that we want to put in this tax package probably means that something else falls out. So if we are going to do no taxes on tips, does that mean we're going to have to raise taxes on businesses? Does that mean we're not going to be able to provide as large a child tax credit that's going to help working families? There are certain trade-offs involved here. And for me, this no tax on tips policy is pretty low on the priority list.
Interesting. Now, Trump also mentioned that he would lift the SALT deduction cap. Tell us more about what that is exactly and how it could impact Americans, and I think homeowners was the thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, the SALT cap, this is the state and local deduction. It was capped in 2017. I think Trump's policies were right then. When you have this deduction unlimited, all it does is let those policymakers in blue states like Maryland, California, New Jersey, New York, it lets politicians in those state capitals raise taxes on wealthy people and effectively allowing those people to pass off a portion of that tax bill to federal tax policy, to federal taxpayers. So it's really lousy policy. I think the SALT deduction should be eliminated altogether. I don't think that cap should be increased. And again, if you raise that cap, you're providing a tax cut to the wealthiest people in the bluest states in this country. I don't think that's really fair or appropriate. And it does create those same math problems that I was talking about earlier because it is very, very expensive. And again, does that mean that we're not going to be able to lower rates for small businesses or increase the standard deduction or even hold the line on policies like that I think are really important for growth and for working class Americans?
Okay, so talking about expensive though, what are the implications here for from all the tax cuts? What are the implications for the budget deficit? I mean, Trump also wants to cut income taxes, and he's planning the federal income taxes, and he's planning to offset that with tariffs. But is this a good idea? And in my understanding, wasn't part of the goals of those tariffs that it should achieve less imported goods?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a tricky spot here when it comes to the debt, to put it mildly. We're running about $2 trillion deficits annually. That's just in a single year, we're spending $2 trillion more than we're bringing in tax revenue. That maybe made sense during the pandemic when we had all of this emergency spending going out the door. It does not make sense now that we're in a relatively normal state of affairs. So we have to tackle the debt. And we're talking about all these tax proposals that were thrown out during the campaign trail. We already talked about no taxes on tip. There was no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security income. The list goes on and on. When you tag that all together, you could be talking about a tax package that's $11 trillion or so over 10 years. And I think that would create economic drag. That is to say, that much debt would really harm the economy and reduce the amount of benefit that we would get from pro-growth tax policy. So we need to have a balancing act there when it comes to how much debt we can tackle. We need to do smart tax reform. We can't be quite as fiscally irresponsible as we've seen certainly over the last few years. That's got to be an extraordinarily high priority. Tariffs, horrible idea. Tariffs raise prices. The reason Trump got elected on Tuesday was because people want prices to come down. If you increase tariffs, that will necessarily force prices up. That's bad for manufacturers. It's bad for consumers. And it would be really bad for Donald Trump as well.
Very good point. And I think, thank you so much for coming on today, Brendan Arnold, because things that affect people's wallets, always an interesting topic and important to know. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, mortgage corporation Freddie Mac is saying climbing rates are pushing home buyers to the sidelines. A new report says mortgage rates are nearing 7%. The report also says that home buyer applications dropped 5% last week. Freddie Mac's chief economist said buyers have become very sensitive to mortgage rates. According to the report, rates have been climbing since mid-September. They're back up again after a decline over the summer. In September, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates, leading to a spike in mortgage rates. And after the break, President-elect Trump often touts his foreign policy, saying no new wars started during his first term. How could his second presidency affect relations with U.S. partners in Latin America? We have that after the break.
At NativePath, we're driven to improve the lives of people by providing highly effective supplements that solve common health problems and support optimal health. This is what being on the path is all about.
Visit getnativepath.com/NTD for your special offer.
Nearly 1 in 4 U.S. consumers have been a victim of identity theft, even when they did all the right things to protect their personal information.
I did everything right, but an institution that had my data didn't. And now my identity's been stolen.
Banks, hospitals, employers, and other institutions all have your personal information too. And when they're exposed, careful monitoring of your accounts and credit won't be enough.
I change my passwords all the time. I shred my documents. I thought I was bulletproof, honestly.
I was on the hook for a $75,000 loan I didn't take out.
The information thieves need to steal your identity is already in the hands of others, and it only takes one vulnerability in one place to put your identity at risk.
Let me make this very, very clear. You could do nothing wrong, be perfect about all of your security, and still be a victim of identity theft.
Tens of thousands of my hard-earned money gone.
The stakes are high, and even if you take steps to protect your personal information, you're not the only one who has it. Only LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every second, alerting you to the widest volume of threats others could miss, far beyond what you could possibly monitor on your own. Like someone trying to use your social security number to open a loan, purchase a home in your name, or even take over your investment accounts.
The alerts I get from LifeLock are super simple. Was this you? Yes or no?
And if you become a victim, a dedicated U.S.-based identity restoration specialist will fix it guaranteed. All LifeLock members are backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
There was a letter from LifeLock with a check for over $81,000. They made me whole.
Call now or go online and use promo code GET35 to save 35% off an annual plan for your first year. All plans include a 60-day money-back guarantee. Call 1-800-598-0995 or visit lifelock.com/get35 to save 35% on your first year. Enroll now.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, You'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
Welcome back.
If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. Strong winds have fueled the growth of a California wildfire to cover 20,000 acres. Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency in Ventura County, where around 14,000 people were ordered to evacuate. The fire has destroyed more than 100 structures so far.
A federal judge has struck down the Biden administration's parole in place policy. The program granted temporary legal status and work eligibility to some illegal immigrants married to U.S. citizens. The judge ruled Biden exceeded his authority. Meanwhile, New York City has ended its own program providing food debit cards to migrant families.
With just 25 seats left to be called, the Republicans inch closer to the 218 seat needed for a House majority. If successful, some of their first priorities include improving the economy, tax cuts, school choice, and slashing federal government. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson will have to go through a re-election bid to retain his position, which is set to take place in mid-December.
President-elect Trump has chosen Susie Wiles to be his chief of staff, the first woman in U.S. history to take the position. He is still considering people to fill his cabinet positions and other roles in his administration, including RFK Jr. and Elon Musk. President Biden also gave his first public speech congratulating Trump on his victory and inviting him to the White House.
Looking now at South America, how will the second Trump presidency affect U.S. relations with allies in Latin American countries? An expert tells us it might be more about the people around President-elect Trump rather than the commander-in-chief himself. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar is in Brazil to find out more.
President-elect Trump often touts his foreign policy, saying he got along great with heads of states from different nations. But will this hold up for his second presidency as well? For example, how is he going to handle relations with allies here in South America? To find out more, I spoke with Marcus Schottges. He's the editor-in-chief for the Epoch Times Brazil.
Right now, it's really a key moment to find out where U.S. leadership is going to go.
Schottges suggests that U.S. leadership now might be as crucial as it was during the Cold War. That's because back then, the U.S. had more global influence, but later started giving away its powers. And now new threats are emerging around the globe.
We're seeing a multipolar world, with lots of new centers of power emerging. And the US has, to an extent, delegated part of the authority it had during the Cold War to multilateral organizations. So I mean G7, G20, NATO. And that's an approach that the Biden administration was really very fond of, what they call working with allies and partners. And Trump really has the America First approach to foreign relations as well.
While covering U.S.-Latin America relations, Schottges spoke with multiple former Trump administration officials. One of them worked on policy planning for Latin America with former State Secretary Mike Pompeo.
What did they tell you? What do they think about how the next Trump presidency will affect America's allies in South America and around the world?
What I have been hearing is that we still don't know a lot about that, how that is going to play out regarding Latin America, which of course is a very consequential region with the southern border. It will really depend on who he's going to have as his Secretary of State. Now we might see Pompeo come back. We're not sure about that yet. We have heard rumors that Mike Pompeo might be in the Defense Department right now on a second Trump administration. So we'll really have to wait and see on who are the officials that are going to be dealing with foreign relations.
He added that it's also crucial to look out for Trump's relation with Mexico over the next few months. Mexico recently elected a new president, Claudia Sheinbaum. The relationship between the two could have a significant impact on the immigration crisis in the US. Reporting in Brazil, Arian Pastar, NTD News.
3 people are facing preliminary charges over the death of pop star Payne.
A hotel employee and a suspected drug dealer are being investigated for abandonment before death and supplying narcotics. Here are the details.
3 people have been charged in relation to former One Direction singer Payne's death, Argentine authorities said on Thursday. The 31-year-old died in a fall from his Buenos Aires hotel balcony last month, shocking the world and leaving questions about how it happened. A 911 call from a hotel employee the day Payne died warned he was acting aggressively and could have been under the influence of drugs and alcohol. An autopsy revealed the former singer had traces of alcohol, cocaine, and a prescription antidepressant in his system when he died, said a prosecutor's office in a statement on Thursday. Those charged include a suspected drug dealer, a hotel employee, and a person close to the singer, authorities said. All are accused of playing a role in giving Payne the drugs. None of those charged were named but will be notified and are prohibited from leaving the country, according to the statement. The hotel employee is accused of giving Payne cocaine at least twice during his stay. The alleged drug dealer is said to have provided it twice more 2 days before Payne's death. Authorities said the person who was visiting with Payne is also charged with abandonment of a person followed by death. Prosecutors say the investigation will continue. Payne's body was handed over to his father last weekend and flown back to England.
And Israel sent 2 planes to bring back fans of an Israeli soccer team from the Netherlands today.
This after overnight attacks in the streets that the mayor of Amsterdam describes as anti-Semitic.
Yesterday, there was an outburst of anti-Semitism, such as we had hoped to see no more in Amsterdam. And I am furious, and on behalf of the City Council, and on behalf of the Driehoek, I express the strongest condemnation of the violence that has taken place.
Videos circulating on social media showed riot police intervening in street clashes, with some attackers shouting anti-Israeli slurs.
Amsterdam's mayor said Tel Aviv supporters were attacked, abused, and pelted with fireworks. She added that the riot police had to intervene several times to protect them and escort them to hotels.
Anti-Semitic incidents in the Netherlands have surged since October 7, 2023, with many Jewish organizations and schools reporting threats and hate mail.
The Israeli Prime Minister's office said the order to send planes was taken after a very violent incident targeting Israeli citizens. It happened after the match between Maccabi and Ajax Amsterdam, traditionally identified as a Jewish club.
The Dutch Prime Minister said he was horrified by the anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli citizens, which he called completely unacceptable. In a statement on X, he assured Netanyahu that the perpetrators will be identified and prosecuted. And back to the States, Depaul University and Chicago police are investigating an incident where 2 Jewish students were attacked on campus.
The university says 2 masked attackers punched the students who were demonstrating in support of Israel.
Police are determining whether the attack should be classified as a hate crime.
The university released a statement in support of the students saying Depaul must be made safe and welcoming. The statement said Israel is a core part of Jewish identity.
The 2 students declined medical treatment.
The university has asked anyone with information surrounding the attack to contact them. When we come back, a famous district in Paris has unveiled its enchanting Christmas window displays, marking the start of the holiday season there. This year's theme brings marionettes to delight crowds on the city's grand boulevards.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
The Chinese Communist Party is exposing its hand. The fingerprints can be found all over. and I recently caught wind of these CCP operations on full display in South Korea. The top 13 theaters all rejected Shenyun almost simultaneously. What makes the case in South Korea so different? And how does the CCP extend its influence into other countries? Now, for the Chinese Communist Party, this is warfare. War being waged here isn't being done through tanks and bombs, but instead through the invisible forces of culture and ideology. They also revealed a hidden war.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Thanks for staying with us. The holidays are right around the corner, and experts predict spending to be at an all-time high. Now is the time to start thinking about budgeting.
Let's take a look at shopping trends and how to avoid the holidays from hurting your finances.
It's the season of giving, but if you're not careful with finances, you could be getting a hefty bill at the end of the holiday season. Experts say shopping as early as now can help you budget.
We have seen a trend over the last couple of years of consumers starting their shopping a little earlier for the winter holidays.
Catherine Cullen with the National Retail Federation says holiday spending this year is expected to hit an all-time high, with shoppers spending an average of $902 per person, about $641 going towards gifts and the rest towards food, cards, and decor. There is some good news for shoppers this year.
We do know that in many ways inflation has gotten better than it was last year, particularly when it comes to goods, which is great news for consumers.
A recent survey by NerdWallet found 28% of shoppers who used credit cards to buy gifts last year are still paying off that debt. So, how can you make sure you don't overspend?
The best thing to do is to really make a plan before you start spending. Ideally, we want to use our savings and not debt to fund those purchases.
NerdWallet personal finance expert Kimberly Palmer also recommends these tips. Make a list and figure out exactly how much you want to spend. Start shopping early. Talk to family and friends about expectations and possibly scaling back. And sign up for price drop alerts.
Using some kind of browser add-on like Honey or the Camelizer browser extension just to track those prices can just help make sure that you're getting the best deal possible.
And Christmas is in the air on Paris's grand boulevards.
Stores revealed their animated window displays yesterday, a puppet show for passersby to enjoy.
And today's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
This is one of the first signs that Christmas is near. Paris's big stores revealing their brand new decorations on the Grand Boulevards.
French cinema icon Juliette Binoche unveiled the Christmas window displays at Paris's Printemps Haussmann on Thursday, marking the official start of the city's holiday festivities. Each year, these enchanting displays draw crowds to the iconic department store, a moment awaited by Parisians who gather around the windows.
You've got to keep your childlike soul. Unfortunately, with all the ups and downs of life, debts, vacation, work, people have to work hard. So it's a good thing to lighten the burden. Christmas magic, fortunately, we can get a bit of it here.
This season's theme features marionettes and trend-inspired scenes, with figures seated in compartments enjoying whimsical landscapes. Julie Ducat and her team designed the 130 marionettes, a long effort that paid off with smiles from passers-by.
We have 4 months of full production and 3.5 weeks of installation. So we have been at it for 3.5 weeks now. Opening tonight. It seems to be well attended, so we're delighted. We have 4 months of full production and 3.5 weeks of installation. We remember our travels at camp, so this theme is a bit comforting. I'd say I hope people can identify with them.
Reflecting on the spirit of the holidays, Binoche shared a personal Christmas memory of the simple joys of family gatherings.
I remember one Christmas in particular. My parents had very little money. We lived in a small apartment in the Paris suburbs, and my mother gave me socks, and it was very simple. But I think I came away with a feeling of happiness, real happiness, and feeling fulfilled.
Printemps Christmas displays are visible on the bustling boulevard Haussmann, a Paris district flooded with shoppers during the holiday season. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
That is so cool. It's like Macy's on steroids. Did they actually employ somebody to stand in the window? I don't know. It looked like that for a moment.
Oh,
or maybe it was just for the opening, I think. That's incredible.
So cool. Yeah, 130 animated animatronic marionettes. What an awesome gig that must have been to design and build all that.
Yeah, fun things. Probably lots and lots of work. But we're staying in the winter because winter is approaching and many animals are now preparing to hibernate.
That's right. Honeybees are no exception. Here's some insight on what a hive needs to survive through the winter.
Each year in November, as winter approaches, honeybees and their beekeepers prepare for the important task of keeping the queen bee alive during the cold months.
They kind of just live in this orb around the queen, keep her warm, keep their colony safe throughout those kind of winter months.
They don't have the same kind of evolutionary advantages as some of our native bees, so they need a little extra help to stay warm over the winter.
The queen bee prepares for the winter in August by laying fertilized eggs. As the larvae grow, they are fed a special diet that helps the winter bees to develop an extra large fat body, allowing them to regulate their metabolism and produce vitellogenin. Vitellogenin enhances the bees' immune system and increases their lifespan. This allows winter bees to live up to 6 months, instead of the regular 6-week lifespan of worker bees. Beekeepers Daniel of Aviold and Jennifer of Courtright Center for Conservation do what they can to help prepare the hive for the season ahead.
If they're looking a little light in terms of their honey production, sometimes we'll supplement with extra food. And then we also provide a nice winter wrap just to prevent too much draft and moisture and things like that from getting into the hive.
We give them a mimic nectar, which is like a combination of water and sugar, 1-to-1 ratio with some essential oils like lemongrass and lavender. That's good for their gut health and insurance for the winter months.
Originally from Afro-Eurasia, honeybees differ from the native species of North America.
A lot of native bee species are not colony species like a honeybee. They live solitary lives, and so they're a much smaller population, and they overwinter differently as well. A lot of native bee species will have one queen that goes into the ground over the winter or nests in a cavity, and they'll emerge the following spring.
More erratic winters can pose an extra risk to the honeybees.
So with our changing climate, and especially our changing winters, and so on the warmer days, they'll expand their hive and lose that cluster to keep them warm, so those cold snaps can off hives over the winter.
Sometimes we'll have warm periods where they might venture out too early, so that's also a risk.
Until spring arrives, it's hard to know what the fate of the colony may be.
Coming back after the winter, I think, is the most anxiety-provoking because you're hoping that all our hives survive the winter and get through. And so that magical moment of opening them up in the spring and cheering them on that they survived the winter is a huge accomplishment for them and a proud moment for us as beekeepers.
NTD News, Canada.
I guess I've always wondered where bees go during the winter.
Same. I never really thought about it, that they hibernate. Can we just touch on something that he said? Because I looked it up because I never had any clue, right? And then bumblebees, apparently, the colonies die, but then the queen bumblebee, basically, it sounds like she digs a hole or something. She hides in loose soil. And isn't that interesting? Because it sounds, isn't that like what is this, a hedgehog? Because I never really thought of bees hibernating like this in the ground.
Yeah, so there's so many unexpected and absolutely fantastical things about nature and animals.
Yeah, totally unexpected. Love this. All right, we're heading to a quick break now, and we'll be right back with the second hour, so stay tuned.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste, and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth, without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating, but I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. President-elect Trump outlining his priorities for day one of his incoming administration. He's also picking members of his cabinet. Iris Tao brings us Trump's choice for a chief of staff and the most talked about candidates for other key roles.
President Biden addresses the nation for the first time since Trump won his re-election bid. Jack Bradley has the highlights.
What would a new Republican majority in Congress look like? Economic growth and confronting China top the priority list. We'll tell you what else is on the agenda.
Firefighters struggle to contain a California wildfire that continues to grow. Thousands were ordered to evacuate, and Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency.
The Federal Reserve lowers rates by a 1/4 percentage point. Chair Jerome Powell says the Fed is on its way to a more neutral stance.
This year's Rockefeller Christmas tree marks a break from tradition. More on the origins of the 74-foot giant.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD. I'm Chris Beers in for Kevin Hogan.
And I'm Evelyn Lee. Welcome also for me. Today is Friday, November 8th. In today's top news, President-elect Trump has announced his first official pick for his incoming cabinet. Susie Wiles, his longtime advisor and a key strategist to a successful 2024 campaign, will serve as the White House Chief of Staff. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from West Palm Beach.
President-elect Trump on Thursday night tapping Susie Wiles, the de facto manager of his successful 2024 campaign, as his White House Chief of Staff. Wiles, who will not need Senate confirmation, will be the first woman in U.S. history to hold that title. In a statement, Trump says Wiles helped him achieve one of the greatest political victories in American history, calling her tough, smart, innovative, and is universally admired and respected. Wiles, a respected political operative from Florida, is one of the longest-serving advisors in Trump's orbit. She ran Trump's successful campaigns in Florida in both 2016 and 2020. She's also credited for running Trump's 2024 campaign, one that's described by political strategists as disciplined and well-executed. But Wiles has also been relatively low-key. At the election night watch party in Florida, she even refused to take the mic to speak as Trump celebrated his victory.
Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The Ice Maiden, we call her the Ice Maiden. Come on, Chris. Come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background.
Meanwhile, on the second day in a row, Trump is taking calls from world leaders and hashing out his cabinet members and policies from his Mar-a-Lago right here in West Palm Beach. While there's quite a list being floated, some are being talked about the most often. For Secretary of State, names include Senator Marco Rubio, who leads national security efforts and serves on the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, and Richard Grenell, the former acting director of national intelligence under Trump. For Defense Secretary, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo could return to run the defense agency. For Attorney General, names being floated include Senator Mike Lee, an attorney previously specialized in Supreme Court litigation, and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who Trump has said was under consideration. Trump's also talked about tapping RFK Jr. to lead health and food policy and Elon Musk to lead efforts to cut government spending. And Trump has repeatedly said before that one of the biggest lessons from his first term was the importance to pick the right people. And this time around, he's expected to pick people who are loyal to him and would ensure a smooth implementation of his vision for the country. Reporting from West Palm Beach, Iris Tao, NTD News.
President Biden makes his first public speech following Trump's victory. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more from the White House.
President Biden addressing the nation from the White House's Rose Garden here, talking about how he called former President and now President-elect Donald Trump to congratulate him on his victory and also to invite him to the White House, although a date has not yet been announced on when that will be. Now, as far as how voters must be feeling right now, President Biden addressed that, saying that he called for unity amid political differences.
You can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree.
Biden also thanked those election workers who worked tirelessly, many of them volunteers, for getting those results processed. He also praised Vice President Kamala Harris in her campaign.
She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran.
Biden dropped out of the race back in July and endorsed Harris. Now, when asked if he regrets that decision and whether the results would have turned out differently, the White House had this to say.
President Biden believes that he made the right decision when he decided to step aside. This was not the outcome that our team had wanted. So are we disappointed? Yes, we are disappointed. But we also respect the outcome of the election. We respect what the American people voted for, wanted.
President Biden said that there's still a lot to be done within the next and last 70 or so days of his presidency. Now, earlier, he just signed an executive order which extends an emergency declaration for about 1 year that prevents the U.S. from investing in Chinese companies that go directly to help its military, saying that the Chinese Communist Party's military is a national security threat. Reporting from the White House, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
A federal judge has struck down the Biden administration's parole in place policy. The Keeping Families Together program gave legal status to some illegal immigrants who are married to U.S. citizens.
The policy shielded immigrants from deportation and allowed them to work legally as they sought citizenship. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the ruling.
The policy allowed illegal immigrants to work legally in the country as they sought citizenship. Biden issued the executive action in June for the program when he was running for re-election. The initiative then launched in August. It was blocked days later while a court considered a legal challenge brought by Texas and a coalition of states. In Thursday's ruling, U.S. District Judge J. Campbell Barker said Congress had not given the executive branch the authority to implement the policy. The case is one of several ongoing legal challenges to Biden administration policies that the incoming Trump administration may refuse to defend. Americans see illegal immigration as the most pressing issue for Trump to address when he takes office in January. A large majority believe he will order mass deportations, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll that closed on Thursday. Chad Wolf was the acting United States Secretary of Homeland Security under the Trump administration. He says DHS is set up to deport people if given the green light.
So this idea of removing individuals or deporting individuals, it's not a new concept. The department has officers dedicated to this. They have resources dedicated to this, detention beds dedicated to this. And so it's actually letting ICE officers do the job that they were hired and trained to do.
Wolf says if folks break the law, they should face the consequences, but it is necessary to prioritize.
There's over 1.5 million orders of removal in this country. These are individuals that have gone through the court system, and an immigration judge has said that you need to remove yourself from this country, and they've decided for whatever reason to remain here in the United States. They should be a priority for removal, in my opinion.
In more immigration news, New York City is ending a pilot program that gave migrant families prepaid debit cards. Families of 4 were receiving cards worth about $350 a week for food. The one-year program was designed to let families in city-funded hotels buy their own groceries. Mayor Eric Adams' office announced it won't be renewed as the city shifts to competitive contracts for migrant aid. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Now that Republicans have won the Senate and are just seats away from taking the House, what would a new Republican Congress look like?
NTD's Melina Wisecup has more on the Republican policy agenda.
Just 25 House races have yet to be called, mostly on the West Coast, and Republicans are getting very close to securing 218. And if they are successful there, they already have an agenda to get started on. Speaker Mike Johnson previously laid out 5 priorities that they'd like to address once they take the gavel. At the top of that list is invigorating the economy, and he noted that confronting China is a key element to doing so.
Bipartisan work will continue as we take on Chinese companies that use forced labor and dodge tariffs through the de minimis exception. Congress also continues to have productive conversations about the best way to prevent American funds from flowing into firms that support the Chinese military. More and more people now understand that we support the Chinese economy at our own peril.
The speaker committed to supporting tax cuts that will likely be pushed by President-elect Trump, as well as revamping U.S. oil and gas production. Another 2 priorities are to open up opportunities for school choice and slash the size of the federal government.
And root out a long list of non-essential jobs throughout the federal bureaucracy. Our government is going to be a responsible government with a reduced scope and reduced spending.
Now, Speaker Mike Johnson does need to go through a re-election bid to remain the House Speaker. That race is shaping up for mid-December. Otherwise, the most challenging part for Republicans now in Congress will be to surpass the 60-vote threshold in the Senate in order to pass key pieces of legislation. With just 53 Republicans now, that means that most of these bills will need to be bipartisan in order to get enough Democrats on board to vote for them. As of right now, while Republicans have secured the Senate, they're just a few seats away from also securing the House. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani says he is a victim of political persecution. This is after a judge threatened to hold him in contempt for failing to surrender his assets. A federal judge set a new deadline for Giuliani to transfer his luxury apartment and other belongings to 2 Georgia election workers he defamed. Giuliani said the defamation judgment is, quote, ridiculous, and that he's pretty sure it can be reversed. The 2 election workers say Giuliani is resisting their efforts to collect the assets and ignoring questions about where his property is located. The judge gave Giuliani till next week to hand it over. The assets in question include a $5 million apartment in New York City, a Mercedes-Benz, a Yankees shirt signed by Joe DiMaggio, and other luxury items. Moving on, President-elect Donald Trump still has multiple lawsuits against him to deal with. He faces 4 outstanding criminal cases, 2 of which are at the federal level. He also faces multiple civil cases. Here to tell us what comes next is trial attorney Jeremy Rosenthal of Rosenthal, Calabas, and Tarian. Welcome back, Jeremy. Now that Trump is president-elect, what do you see happening in the 2 federal cases overseen by Special Counsel Jack Smith?
Those are going to go away one way or the other. They're either going to go away by the Justice Department dismissing the cases themselves. Jack Smith is currently said to be winding down his role. It could go away if the president, Joe Biden, the current president, pardons Donald Trump. That may be something that the president considers, given the American people and their decision on Tuesday. Another way that this happens is Donald Trump has already pledged to fire Jack Smith. He can't do it, but his new attorney general could. It's a little stickier than that, but that's how those federal cases go away.
Jeremy, you just mentioned something that I haven't heard anyone talking about, but it's pretty interesting, the idea of President Biden actually pardoning Trump. Is there anything that gives you reason to believe that it would actually happen? What makes you bring that up?
Legally, it's an option, and it would probably be more preferable for Donald Trump to accept a pardon from Joe Biden than it would be for Donald Trump to pardon himself. When Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon, it was done for the sake of the country, so we could just sort of move on and be done. Again, I'm a lawyer. I stay in my lane. I'll let the politicians make what they think to be the best political choices. But legally, that would be a pretty clean end to all of these things.
Okay, and in the New York business records trial, Trump has been convicted but not sentenced yet. His legal team is trying to argue that as president-elect, he's entitled to the same legal protections as a sitting president. How much leverage does this argument have on that case?
At the moment, not much. Judge Marchand has a handful of options right now. First off, on the 12th, he may potentially throw the case out. I doubt that he will. It would be based on the immunity issues and some of the testimony that came in the case from Hope Hicks when he was at the White House. The Supreme Court said that was off limits. The question is, did that affect the whole trial? I don't think Judge Marchand is going to go there. But at the sentencing, the judge can abate the case. He can probably put it on pause. He can allow Donald Trump to appeal, and let's see what happens there. And then we'll come back and deal with this when the case comes back from appeal. In theory, he could sentence Donald Trump to 20 years of prison. That would, in all likelihood, trigger some of the claims that you just mentioned, which would be his lawyers coming back and trying to make some sort of supremacy clause argument. But probably what happens is either Judge Marchand exercises an option that I believe he has in New York State, which is he can convict Donald Trump without sentencing him and just be done, or he puts him on some kind of probation where Donald Trump really just doesn't have to do anything. Maybe starts checking in 2029 once he's out of the White House. But I don't think anybody expects there to be any type of serious punishment here.
Okay, and Trump owes $500 million after the ruling in his New York fraud civil case. Where does this case stand, and does anything change now that he's president-elect?
That one doesn't go away. There's a case from the 1990s involving Bill Clinton where he was sued civilly, and the Supreme Court back then said you can sue a sitting president civilly. So right now, as that stands, that one's going to be unaffected. Maybe Donald Trump tries to change that precedent, but at the moment, that case is still ongoing. It's on appeal. The arguments have been given, and he is still on the hook for the fraud case and the sex assault judgments that have been levied against him.
And then moving south to the state of Georgia, the criminal case there is in basically disarray after allegations of inappropriate conduct amongst the case's leadership emerged. Trump cannot pardon himself in state-level cases. So could this gain momentum once again, you think?
Maybe, but not anytime soon. This case, like you said, it's super stuck in the mud right now. It's on appeal. The question is Fani Willis able to stay on the case, or is she going to have to give it up and let somebody else handle it? If she is ordered to give up the case, it's going to be an orphan. And they're going to have to find some other prosecutor to do that. And now that Trump again is the president of the United States, or will shortly be the president of the United States, you would think that a lot of you would think that you're not going to find a whole lot of takers on that. So that one is the furthest away, if you will. But again, it's on appeal and stuck in the mud. I don't think we're going to hear anything about that one anytime soon.
And just last question here, looking ahead, what legal protections will Trump have as the sitting president, and could he face more lawsuits when he's in office?
Potentially, yes. I mean, he can be sued civilly, and I believe I've heard rumblings about defamation suits from this campaign based on things that he may have said. He wouldn't have immunity from those. Now, once he takes the Oval Office, he would be subject to the immunity that was outlined in this last summer's immunity opinion, which is to say that any kind of official act he would have immunity for. If you remember back to Watergate, President Nixon, they called it the Saturday Night Massacre, where he fired multiple attorney generals because they wouldn't fire the special prosecutor. And we all thought that was impeachment level stuff. Well, now the Supreme Court has made it clear that the President of the United States, that's his job, is to direct the Justice Department. That's his job, to direct the Attorney General. So Trump can absolutely hire, fire, promote, demote an Attorney General based on their actions with the special counsel. So Trump's going to he's going to have a lot of immunity once he gets into the Oval Office.
All right, trial attorney Jeremy Rosenthal, thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a great morning.
Still to come, firefighters struggle to contain a California wildfire that has forced thousands to evacuate.
And Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency in Ventura County there.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind.
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The ways down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know it's there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At NativePath, we're driven to improve the lives of people by providing highly effective supplements that solve common health problems and support optimal health. This is what being on the path is all about.
Visit getnativepath.com/NTD for your special offer.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college, first round draft pick. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father and as a husband. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Welcome back. A brush fire in California has grown to over 20,000 acres, destroying homes and forcing thousands of evacuations.
California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency in Ventura County.
A wildfire northwest of Los Angeles burned out of control for a second day Thursday. It destroyed hundreds of buildings, but officials said firefighters could catch a break, with fierce winds expected to die down by Friday evening. Firefighters said the blaze was only 5% contained as of Thursday evening. Ventura County's fire chief gave a news conference saying the fire was still dangerous. The office ordered more than 14,000 evacuations.
It's been a long 26 hours since this incident started, and it remains dynamic and it remains dangerous. And again, I'm going to reiterate a couple of things that my partners have said up here. To our community members that have been impacted by this fire, our hearts do go out to you. You are our families, you are our communities.
The blaze, dubbed the Mountain Fire, began Wednesday morning in an area dealing with unseasonably high temperatures and strong winds. The fire department said at least 800 firefighters had been assigned, and hundreds more were arriving from around the state. Governor Newsom said California has mobilized state resources, including personnel, fire engines, and aircraft, and that FEMA sent a fire management assistant grant to help fight the fire. While officials estimate more than 100 structures were destroyed, we won't know the full extent of the damage until 10 damage assessment teams complete their work. Ventura County Sheriff Jim Fryhoff said at least 10 people were injured, mostly from inhaling smoke. Wildfires have scorched more than 1 million acres throughout California this year, according to CAL FIRE. That's much more than the 300,000 acres burned by the same time last year.
The Federal Reserve cutting rates again, this time by 1/4 percentage point. This brings the benchmark federal funds rate to between 4.5 and 4.75%.
All 12 Fed voters backed the decision. During the question and answer session, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the cut will help maintain the strength of the economy.
We're on a path to a more neutral stance, and that's very much what we're on. That has not changed at all since September, we're just going to have to see where the data lead us.
A more neutral stance is one where the Fed will implement a level of interest rates that is neither stimulative nor restrictive for the economy. This hypothetically allows the economy to develop at a natural pace without Fed impact. Chairman Jerome Powell reiterated his goal of hitting a 2% inflation rate over the long run and achieving maximum employment. Moving on, the FDA wants to remove from the market a common ingredient found in over-the-counter decongestants. The Food and Drug Administration says there's evidence that oral phenylephrine doesn't work. It's an ingredient found in brand decongestants, including Sudafed and Dayquil and others. The effectiveness of the ingredient has been debated for years. A number of large clinical trials have concluded it's not effective when taken orally. However, the drug's safety is not a concern. The FDA proposal now kicks off a 6-month public comment period. The agency would then make a final decision on whether to pull the drug from store shelves. Major retailer CVS pulled product containing phenylephrine from its shelves last year. Other pharmacies still stock the drug. Nasal sprays that include the ingredient are not targeted by the FDA's proposals.
And the concept of free will takes center stage in the novel Lost in Thought. Chris sat down with author Deborah Serra to get the gist of her book that came out just last week. Here's how she came up with her idea for the book.
I became very interested in how we make choices. I felt that my research that I was doing autodidactically and familiarity with UCSD had led me to believe that we're not really deliberating the way we think we are. Our brain is not impartial at all. And most of the time, we're not aware of how we make our choices. So I wanted to write a novel that was a hybrid between a traditional fictional tale of a woman who starts questioning the choices she's made in her life. But underneath the narrative, there was a very strong thematic question, investigating, are we really making the choices we think we're making? Our brain is not impartial, and it's feeding us information we're just really not aware of. So I've got 4 characters, one main character in this book, who are being driven by unconscious decisions that the reader becomes aware of and that they are not aware of in their own lives.
So you called it Lost in Thought. Why did you choose that title?
I wanted to show that in the title, which was hard, that we are lost many, many times when we're thinking and when we don't think we are thinking. And the easiest example of that is someone who's walking to work or driving to work for, we don't know, the 15th time, and you leave your house and then you're there. And so the question is, who stopped at the stoplights? Who looked at the crosswalk? Who got you on your way? So a lot of what we do in our everyday has been relegated to unconscious activity. And that feeling of being lost in that is what led me to Lost in Thought.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about how I get to work, I mean, it's so automatic, and I've done it like millions of times. It's like the same thing every time, and I never have to think about it at all.
No, you don't. And what happens is little by little, more and more choices are being made by our unconscious, by self-aware. And it's just curious because there are a lot of social ramifications for that we don't really think about. And a mystery, we're all mysteries to ourselves. And the more research I did, the more I realized our brains are lying to us all the time. They tell us stories all the time. And it's not really an accurate world that any of us are functioning in. And I thought it would be fascinating to take a traditional storyline with, characters and plot and just sort of lead it on top of that thematic thought. And so that's what I've hoped I've done.
So what do you think that readers will take away from this? I mean, obviously you can't predict or know what everyone's going to think, but what do you think some of the options are, so to speak?
Well, I think the readers who are interested in fiction, just good fiction, I hope that they read the prose and think, wow, this is, there's some beautiful metaphor and some wonderful sentences and some characters that are deep and interesting and different. And the people who are more interested in the science aspect can easily walk away with a lot of questions about how they got where they are in their lives and how much of that they really decided on their own or was sort of driven to by things they weren't paying attention to.
All right, Deborah Serra, author of Lost in Thought, thank you.
Thank you.
One quick last note on that. The book came out October 22nd, so if you want to read it, you can go get it.
That's right. And the Big Apple's gearing up for the holiday season. The famous Rockefeller Center Christmas tree officially begins its journey from a small Massachusetts town to New York City. That's after the break.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, today's coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
My graduation was something I will never forget. People like you and me sometimes may have doubts in ourselves, but I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Good to have you back. The Big Apple is gearing up for the holiday season. The famous Rockefeller Center Christmas tree is expected to arrive at Center Plaza tomorrow.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has the background on the tree's origins.
The 74-foot Norway spruce was cut down in West Stockbridge, Massachusetts on Thursday.
The tree is a Norway spruce, and the owner tells me it was planted 67 years ago in honor of his nieces in a home that is the oldest home in West Stockbridge, Mass, built in 1769.
It is the first tree from Massachusetts to be selected for the Christmas display since 1959. Tourists flock to the now festive site to bid farewell to the tree. Tanya and Michael came all the way from Europe.
From Copenhagen, Denmark, and I'm here in West Stockbridge to see the Rockefeller tree here in West Stockbridge being cut down.
We are big fans of Christmas. We in our house in Denmark we have 2 Christmas trees.
Sometimes 3.
Sometimes 3. Our dog loves Christmas and we wrap all the stuff for her as well.
For locals, the giant tree has a lot of meaning.
And I'm very proud that a tree from West Stockbridge has been chosen to go to Rockefeller Center and be lit up.
Upon its arrival, the tree will be decorated with 50,000 multicolored lights with a Swarovski crystal star on top. The 91st annual Christmas in Rockefeller Center tree lighting event will take place December 4th and will be broadcast live. Spectators can glimpse the tree daily from 5 a.m. till midnight, and it will remain on display until mid-January. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Wow, it even attracted tourists from Denmark.
Right? Incredible.
Amazing.
I want to go to their house for Christmas. It sounds great.
3 Christmases. Yeah, I love Christmas spirit. I love it. So can't have enough of that. Lights, trees, give it all to me.
Yeah. Well, what a remarkable story of the tree itself. It's in the oldest house in this small town, and it was planted as a gift. I think if I heard it correctly, for the person's niece.
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, there is a whole story behind it.
Right.
All right, and an iconic London landmark is getting into the holiday spirit also.
Battersea Power Station opened its popular ice rink yesterday. Let's take a look.
London's Battersea Power Station is getting a festive makeover. It marked the opening of its festive ice rink named Glide with an evening for invited guests. Glide is made up of 3 interconnecting rinks with a large Christmas tree as its centerpiece. This will be its 3rd year in operation. Visitors can also ride a festive carousel.
This is a truly special festive setting. We have the iconic backdrop of Battersea Power Station and our beautiful 30-foot Christmas tree. Also some delicious Christmas cocktails to get into the festive spirit.
Built in the 1930s, the coal-powered Battersea Power Station once supplied a fifth of London's electricity. It was shut down in the late 70s and 80s. It was supposed to be torn down, but by this time it had already become an icon of pop culture. The power station was prominently featured in the Beatles' film Help and on the cover of Pink Floyd's album Animals. Over the years, the building passed from owner to owner, each with ambitious plans to redevelop it. The once derelict site has now been redeveloped into offices, shops, and high-end apartments. Glide's event manager says the attraction will help this kind of community development.
So we see a real uptake in the local community. That's a really big part of us being here, is building connections with the local community, which we love, but also people travelling from across London. Battersea is now super accessible. We have the Uber boat, which is amazing, and international visitors as well coming to London for the Christmas season. So really visitors from all over, which we love.
The World Monuments Fund has recognized Battersea Power Station as a site in need of protection. Glide hopes to be part of the effort to revitalize this London landmark.
It's nice to see that kind of thing getting a new life.
Right. I mean, I haven't been there myself, but they honestly make so much out of it. I like it that I just generally, I think I'm more of a fan of the Christmas market though, but it's just, yeah, why not? Such an icon.
Sure.
And a little lost penguin gets marooned on a sunny surf beach thousands of miles from his homeland.
And a rascally raccoon rappels down from an airport terminal ceiling. Check this out.
Hello? A lonely emperor penguin is making headlines after showing up inexplicably on an Australian beach. Hello? Thousands of miles from its native Antarctica. Oh, shoot. Experts think rather than making a wrong turn, it's likely the penguin may have followed a northward current in search of food. An eyewitness told Aussieophile ABC when it arrived, the traveler dove and slid on its belly, likely thinking the sand was snow, before standing up and shaking off. Hey, this ain't no snow. Officials said the penguin was malnourished and, let's face it, probably a little embarrassed, but it is now being rehabilitated by a registered local wildlife carer. Speaking of wildlife being where it ain't supposed to be, chaos ensued at New York's LaGuardia Airport after a rascally raccoon rappelled down through a ceiling tile before scurrying around and freaking out travelers and staff. Eyewitnesses say officials were eventually able to shoo the critter outside, and Spirit Airlines later said it's addressing the incident with a professional wildlife control company.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. All these surprise visitors.
Right? Amazing that this penguin can travel all that distance.
Gosh, poor penguin though. Probably had a rough night and just got on land and goes like, where the heck am I?
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up our show right here, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD News Today. That starts at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
That's right. Also, don't forget to follow us on X at NTD Good Morning. Thank you so much for watching now and have a good weekend. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Chris Beers.
My name is Ken Mears. I'm the founder of Great Healthworks, the makers of Omega XL. Those of you who are searching to address your aches and pains, Omega XL is for you.
I'd wake up in the morning and my hands would be swollen. When I went out to feed the animals, I was in a lot of pain. And to not be able to do the things that you enjoy, it was depressing.
Joint pain due to inflammation affects so many of us. Omega XL is natural, effective, and drug-free, and it has been shown in clinical research to help reduce